Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the author Andrew Snorton, and you're joining me for the Fast 15, as we normally do on Wednesday afternoons, usually about 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, give or take a few minutes. We take no more than about 15 minutes to kind of pause, check up, check in, enjoy an encouraging note from any of my books or audiobooks, but with it being the first Wednesday of the month, we will pick a selection from the library from another author, have a couple of announcements, and close out on some positive and encouraging notes. As most of us are aware, when life is happening and sometimes when it's not going exactly your way, you may not be able to wait till the end of the day or the beginning of the next day in order to kind of pause, reboot, reset, refresh. So hopefully, not only for me, for a moment to kind of slow my roll for a little bit, but I hope for you, it's an opportunity for you to do the same. To stay connected with me, the easiest way is on Instagram at AuthorASnorton. And you can also, for the complete listing of all the social media, website, newsletters, any interviews I've been able to do on different media platforms, the Lens to Pens podcast, the archival editions of the Conversation Corner on the Status Network, as well as the coffee information with our collaborative brand, the Author Andrew Snorton Blend, in collaboration with Fonte's Coffee. Make sure to check out Linktr.ee, Linktr.ee/AuthorASnorton for all that info. But if you can't remember the Linktree, add me on Instagram, click on the link in the bio, and it'll take you right there. So I thank each and every one of you for joining us. And shouts to Kelly Marie Taylor, 1971, for joining. Hopefully you and your family are doing as well as possible today and all days. So make sure to check her out and all that type of stuff. So before we get into our selection for the day, which is going to be from an author on my library stacks, there's one here and you can't see the other ones off camera, for a note, just like we always do, we know that anytime people are watching, or they're watching live, or they watch the replay or the reels or the clips or whatever, you never know what people are going through. So if you or somebody you know is going through a life challenge, it could be health related, it could be and health encompassing physical, mental, emotional well-being, it could be finances, it could be family, it could be stress levels are through the roof or things along those lines. If you're somebody you know is really going through a challenging time, you have every right to vent, express, articulate what you're feeling. You do have every right to do that. Make sure, though, when you're doing that, it does not spill over into something that can be detrimental to you or detrimental to somebody else's health or well-being. And definitely, depending on the situation, if it calls for professional help, based on the access that you have, get the professional help you need. If it means changing your routine, changing your eating habits, your drinking habits, your rest habits, your work habits, identify the constructive ways that you're able to kind of pause, reset, and reboot. And as a side note, and this is from personal experience, sometimes it's hard to figure out what those next steps are when you are in a challenging space. You're in a confused state of mind. You're in a hurting state of mind. You are in a clouded state of mind. So the whole point of articulating and venting is to get your system clear. And now that your system's clear, you can look at the issue or challenge for what it is and then go ahead and figure out what your next steps are going to be. So if that sounds like you or someone you know, extending, well wishes, words of encouragement, and, definitely go through it and grow through it. On the flip side, there are positives that are taking place. There are people that might have gotten a new job, people that learned how to cook something. You might have discovered a new restaurant. You heard your favorite song, something along those lines. So for those who are going through, positive growth opportunities, hey, congratulations to you. Celebrate within reason. Do not go overboard, because you don't want it to spill over into something else, and feed off of positive energy, especially if it's individual and collective and constructive growth. You definitely want to feed off of those. So those are the notes that we almost always start with before we get into our passage for the day. And before I get into my passage for the day, I'm going to enjoy a sip of coffee. And as you can figure out, yes, I'm enjoying a sip of the bourbon-infused coffee. Make sure to check it out. Get your bag a really good coffee today. I'll remind you of how to get that. So for November 6th, today I'm going back from the archives and looking at an author whose work, just not only as an author, but in general, definitely hits home. And that, of course, is the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we're going to look at a segment of his book, Stride to Freedom, which is the classic story of nonviolent resistance in America. So for our little history lesson, let's see. Yeah, I found it. So this is actually written, Stride to Freedom, during the era of the Montgomery bus boycotts. As some people are aware, back in the 50s, segregation was running wild and rampant, and especially regarding public transit in the city of Montgomery, Alabama. Many are aware of the work of Rosa Parks and others who are like, hey, this doesn't make any sense. And for almost a 2-year stretch, because of people pulling together and the economic impact, it helped change policy. So the segment I'm going to read from Stride to Freedom is going to speak to one of the key things that I think is probably timely, just not only then, but I'm going to read these 2 paragraphs in this particular chapter. Where do we go from here? So here's how it goes. As a result of the failure of the moral forces of the nation to mobilize behind school integration, the forces of defeat were given the chance to organize and crystallize their opposition. While the good people stood silently and complacently by, the misguided people acted. If every church and synagogue had developed an action program, if every civic and social welfare organization, every labor union and educational institution had worked out concrete plans for implementing their righteous resolutions, if the press, radio, and television had turned their powerful instruments in the direction of educating and elevating the people on this issue, if the president and the Congress had taken a forthright stand, if these things had happened, federal troops might not have been forced to walk the corridors of Central High School. But it is still not too late to act. Every crisis has both its dangers and opportunities. It can spell either salvation or doom. In the present crisis, America can either achieve racial justice or ultimate social crisis that can only lead to domestic suicide. The democratic ideal of freedom and equality will be fulfilled for all, or all human beings will share in the resulting social and spiritual doom. In short, this crisis has the potential for democracy's fulfillment or fascism's triumph, for social progress or retrogression. We can choose either to walk the high road of human brotherhood or tread the low road of man's inhumanity to man. Now, keep in mind, this was stated in the 1950s. And as we get reminded, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So given the current landscape, there's an opportunity to not repeat history and do differently and do better across the board. Or we're going to run into the same old, over and over and over again. So the words that I read were talking about the Montgomery bus boycott and a little bit about the Little Rock 9 regarding Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, who, by the way, one of the Little Rock 9 recently passed, maybe no more than 2 weeks ago. So again, words from 1954 approximately. And here we are in 2024. I will leave it there, but you definitely, if you have not read Stride to Freedom by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., is definitely a timely piece talking about social issues, social change, and the charge that we have to keep. So, in that spirit, here's a couple of quick reminders before we make sure to close out and wind down. First off, thank you to everybody that stopped by Nubian Bookstore in Morrow, Georgia this past Saturday, November 2nd. Many thanks to the ownership and the entire team of Nubian Bookstore. They are actually probably the only bookstore in Clayton County, Georgia. So I had a great time. Always good to be there. Shouts to everybody that stopped by, popped up, supported, hung out, all that type of thing. It was a great experience, and I'm thankful that they are one of the many bookstores that are carrying all 4 of my books. So if you weren't able to come out last Saturday and you're in Metro Atlanta, go to Nubian, among other bookstores in Metro Atlanta, get your copy or two. Upcoming book signings and authors talk. Join me November 23rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in Jacksonville, Florida at San Marco Books and More. I will be the featured author for their pop-up series. So 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Jacksonville, Florida, San Marcos Books and More in Jacksonville, Florida. So make sure to check that out. December 14th from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at Bo's Books and Brews. This is the new date for the authors talk. I was originally supposed to have that on October 26th. I had a health issue that was going on that prevented me from traveling, but so far so good. So the new date at Bo's Books and Brews, December 14th, 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Shouts to the great folks there, and shouts to Jazzy B for real, as she will be our host and moderator for that great authors talk. So make sure to check those 2 opportunities out to meet, greet, connect, add any of the books, download the audio books, get you a bag of really good coffee with the AuthorASnorton blend, and enjoy a sip with Snorton, as we'll have all those things available. A couple other upcoming things. We know Veterans Day is coming up. Remember, Veterans Day recognizes those people who are living who are either former members of the military or current members. Thank you for the tireless service that you do during challenging times near and far. So many, many thanks to all the vets. On the Divine Nine end, we know that coming up next week, the ladies of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated will be celebrating their Founders Day. It should be their 102nd. So shouts to all the amazing women of that Divine Nine sorority. Greater service, greater progress. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We also know later in the month, the Noble Fratres of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated will be celebrating their Founders Day. This should be number 1, oh gosh, I know I'm better with math, 113. So congratulations to the Noble Fratres of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, as their Founders Day is coming up later this month. A couple other quick things. As always, just thank you. Hopefully this time that we do this live or pre-record or what have you is a moment to kind of pause and reboot and refresh. Sometimes it's easier said than done. There's a lot going on, not only just with the elections, but there's a lot going on across the board. Do what you can to pause and reboot. That's the simplest piece of advice I can give you. Do what you can to pause and reboot. When your mind calms down, really evaluate your moving parts, see what adjustments you need to make, and like they say, protect and preserve your peace. But just as equal, while I know I see a number of people, the power of prayer, I'm not going to deny the power of prayer, but there's a saying, faith without works is dead. So you can't just talk about it. You have to make some type of action on some level in order to be the change that you want to be. So if there's something that you see immediately, like within your immediate family, your workspace, your community, and beyond, you might not be able to be everywhere, but you've got to be somewhere. And I'll just leave it there, as I'm sure there'll be plenty of commentary that'll be coming up. So as we get ready to wind down, shouts to Kelly Marie Taylor in 1971 for joining. Make sure to check her out. Speak words of encouragement to her and her family regarding the great things that they've got going on. Shouts to every reader, book club, bookstore, book festival, everybody that's taken time to support. 2017, first book that was published, so 7 years later, still here, still grinding. Of course, there's always some things in the works, and I'll drop those when it's time to, but just know that there's some things in the works. Shouts to the amazing folks at Fonte's Coffee as we celebrated 2 years of our collaborative brand with the AuthorASnorton blend. So we have the decaf, the light roast, the medium roast, the bourbon infused. Probably see if we can throw something else together. So we'll figure it out. We'll definitely figure it out. And there's other things that are, like I said, on the horizon, in the works. They will be revealed when they need to be. And yeah, those are kind of the main things going on. So as we get ready to close out, for your day to day, work or recreation, things along those lines, please be safe while you're out and about. The time, the nights are getting, the darkness, the dark day, you know what I mean? The sun is setting earlier and whatever. So please be aware of those time changes, the weather changes, all that type of stuff. And please, focus on doing what you need to do safely. It's going to be there. In general, it's going to be there more often than not. Every once in a while it's not, but it's going to be there more often than not. So as we get ready to close out, as a reminder, whether small or big, a victory is a victory. Whether slow or swift, movement is movement. As best as possible, keep it victorious. Keep it moving. All of you take very good care. Look forward to seeing you guys real soon. All right, take care, y'all.